Hello everyone, welcome back to Extract the Fact. I'm your host, Adam Izraelevitz. So today we're going to be looking at more in-depth contemporary politics. I'm excited to launch this episode just because it's really relevant, especially this week, and it will continue to be relevant for the next couple of months, and that is an issue regarding the Supreme Court. So as we know, a couple days ago, President Trump nominated conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. It was Trump's second appointment out of the total 9 judges that are on the Supreme Court. So already President Trump, in his first year and a half, has gotten a pretty solid amount of judicial appeal and judicial power into that Supreme Court just because of deaths or retirements on the Supreme Court. As we know, Supreme Court justice can serve until his death or until he retires, as did Anthony Kennedy just last week. Now, for this purpose of this discussion, I really want to examine presidential power. So I'm going to be looking today at, should the president be allowed to appoint supreme justices or in the United States, or should they be elected by some governing body or by the people? So we're going to be looking at those two sides. Yes, the president should be appointing Supreme Court justices, or no, he should not be appointing Supreme Court justices. So first, I will argue for the yes, the president should be able to, and then we'll transition. But for now, let's see the points for yes, he should be able to appoint Supreme Court justices. So first, I just want to read a basic chart from the Social Studies Help Center website. And I want to demonstrate the relationship between the judicial and the executive branch here. So really the core check on the judicial branch's power from the executive branch is the president nominates judges. And then if we flip it around, the judicial branch's check on the executive branch is the court can declare presidential acts unconstitutional. So that's kind of the really basic relationship that we have going between the judicial and executive branch. Now, having said that, therefore, that is the core power of the executive branch. Obviously, presidents have a lot of different powers, but at its core, that is a key check on the judiciary system. And if we didn't have that from the executive branch would not have a check on the judicial system, and that would cause an imbalance in the otherwise stable United States government system of checks and balances. In addition, this is a really powerful tool that presidents use. This is not a minor power that presidents have. It is used in elections. It's a really powerful tool to motivate people to pursue a presidency based on ideology and not just whatever's trending in the latest news. So for example, many people who didn't agree with Trump's character in this past election, or didn't like his tone, or they didn't like some of his policies, a lot of conservatives and particularly evangelicals in middle America really rallied around Trump because they knew there was an opportunity in the next 4 or 8 years for a Supreme Court slot to be vacated, whether that is by death or by retirement, wherever. They knew that Trump, as a conservative, would nominate a conservative judge. So that is a huge motivating tool for conservatives. And likewise for progressives and for liberals. When Barack Obama was president, a lot of liberals and progressives, even if you didn't agree with everything Obama stood for, they were motivated to pursue that. President Obama's nomination because of all these Supreme Court justices. I was just seeing he nominated Elena Kagan and Sona Sotomayor. Now, a lot of people say against this argument, they say, oh, well, it is an authoritative tool, how the president can just pick a judge and automatically he's on the Supreme Court. Well, actually, that's not really true, because supporters of this argument would say the president actually needs legislative approval. So just recently, the Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, he authorized a nuclear policy of Senate confirming judges, which means you need Senate majority, so at least 51 votes to get the senator through to the Supreme Court. So you need legislative backing there. It's not just an autocratic decision by the president. And Kavanaugh will be grilled in Senate hearings and final votes by majority. He'll go through a rigorous process where senators on both sides really grill him for his past rulings and really see if he's fit to be a Supreme Court judge. So it's not just Trump is randomly picking some guy and he's just going onto the Supreme Court. So for example, we have a statistic here from NBC News, and it says in this article, over the last 42 years, 14 court nominees who went to a full Senate confirmation vote waited on average 67 days. So in this 67 days, there's a lot of hearings, rigorous grilling into past cases. It's not just kind of, oh, Brett Kavanaugh is now in the Supreme Court. There is a process. It's not just immediately tabbed by the president. So again, another check from the legislative branch this time. So now I'll just argue a little bit for the no side, that presidents should not be able to appoint Supreme Court justices. So the core argument here is judges are supposed to be fair-minded, not blinded by politics in Washington. So for example, the judge is always supposed to be the fairest person in the room, really seeing both sides to every issue. So why would the president, naturally always involved in partisan politics in Washington, be appointing his guy, essentially? So why are we having a partisan figurehead appointing a position that is really supposed to be nonpartisan? That is at the core of the argument there. So people argue an unbiased selection process is needed, either by an independent person, an independent body, or the general electorate at large. Now, on a USA Today article, a University of Tennessee law professor argues there should be a system kind of like what we have for the FBI director. For the FBI director, the term is 10 years, so why don't we have that for judges? Again, another limit. Instead of serving for life, you serve for 10 years, so that limits, again, the presidential power, because let's say Trump, Brett Kavanaugh, I believe, is 49, Neil Gorsuch is 49 years old, another appointee of President Trump's. Neil Gorsuch is 49, so he's serving for at least 30 years if he's healthy. So if you limit that, again, it will restrict presidential power. Now, there's also another argument that there is too much presidential power when appointing Supreme Court justices. Like I said before, Trump has already had 2 of 9 appointed on the court, which is already a pretty sizable mark for the court, and more could come based on retirement or death. And again, we're just a year and a half in, and already the court has swung from a 4-4 with Justice Kennedy kind of being the moderate. He leaned more to the conservative side, but again, he voted with the Democrats on affirmative action, and he voted with gay marriage. Kennedy, again, has been kind of the moderate, and now with Brett Kavanaugh, most people think he is a hardline conservative, so now that balance will shift to a 5-4 strong conservative majority, which is a huge deal because the judicial system is a third of our government, and if the Republican president is putting in these judges, the judicial system naturally will shift to the right as well. Now, there are other options available. So proponents of this, the president should not be able to appoint justices. There are really other options available. So we have justiceatstake.org says that 24 states use bipartisan commissions to help choose their Supreme Court justices. So again, there's the United States Supreme Court, but then under that we have Supreme Courts for each state. So 24 states use a coalition from both sides of the aisle and independents as well that decide together who should be on the court, not just the president kind of picking based on partisan politics inside Washington. In addition, we have in other parts of the other parts of the world, we see on judiciary.gov.uk, a site by the United Kingdom, how they choose their national Supreme Court justices is by an independent judiciary commission. So this is a bunch of independent, nonpartisan, non-politically affiliated group of people that come together and really try to fit the most fair-minded judge for both sides of the aisle. So this is different. This is a uniquely American thing that we have that is a proponent of our democracy, and there are other options available on the state level and on the international level. So I think this is a really important issue. Always, I think that the legislative branch and the executive branch are really talked a lot about in our society, and obviously there's tons, and deservedly so, a lot of news about those two branches. But sometimes the Supreme Court is lost in the fray because court cases are often long and dragged out. But the judicial branch is, again, the judges serve for life. So this is a long-standing branch that is not usually altered in the way we see it today. So I think it's a really pivotal issue, and it's obviously a key part of our government. And I'm really curious to see what you guys think. So comment below. All right, thank you guys.